Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. I'm very fortunate today to have with me Kristin Hutchison, joining me all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. So Kristin is also known as KristinBeingKristin. She's a mum and wife by day, a bartender and comedian at night. And whether she's pouring drinks or telling jokes, she helps people to solve their problems using a little heart humor and sass, which I feel like we all need sometimes. And Kristin likes to make people laugh by lightening up and bringing that sense of lightness to the world. And we only have one life to live, so may as well have fun and do what makes you happy. So thank you so much for joining me all the way from over there. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. I wanted to, because you have been sharing so much on your Instagram during lockdown, like your official lockdown over there. You were doing IG
Yep.
lives every night, every weeknight, right?
Yep.
And to thousands and thousands of people who are watching or following or connecting in with you. And that's a pretty amazing thing in its own, just to have that continuous sense of connection, especially when the world might be feeling a little disconnected.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and using humor to do it. So I wanted to ask, what is it about communication through humor and storytelling that you think connects us as humans?
I don't know. I've always grown up around a lot of humor. I've always been kind of the funny kid trying to make people happy when they're sad or kind of lighten up the mood when there's trauma or stress. Uh, my parents got divorced when I was in first grade, so I was always entertaining my mom and just trying to like make things fun at home. And it's just always been something that I loved because I really feel like humor is what the easiest way to kind of deal with difficult situations. And then I grew up around a lot of sketch humor as a kid. The Carol Burnett show, there's just so much humor as a kid in the 70s and 80s on TV. And I think it's just something that I just love the way to make people laugh. And I think it's a way to connect people. And so it's always been just the type of sense of humor that I've had. I've always had just that lighthearted personality that's got a big smile on my face and always just try to like just bring more life to the room.
Mm.
And I really feel like the reason I got back into comedy in my 40s over the past couple of years is because the world got so heavy. And I really felt like when I would go to work years ago, if guys are sitting at the bar and they didn't get along, they might fight about some things and like, oh, screw it, get this guy a beer, and they would cheers and they'd move on.
Mm.
And it seems like over the past couple of years, we've really lost that ability to agree to disagree or have different of opinions and conversations. So I was like, you know what? I'll just get back up on stage, because if I can find a way to bring some of these hot topics and do it in a humorous way, maybe I can kind of open conversations up again between people and make people think when they leave. And that's how I kind of got back into humor.
That's amazing. And that's such a great perspective to have. Like, I feel like I agree. The world can tend to get so heavy. And when we are so serious about everything all the time,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes we get stuck in that narrow kind of mindset. Even if we're trying to be open-minded, it's that narrow because we have to take things seriously because there's serious stuff
Mm-hmm.
going on and the world is in trouble and all of that sort of thing. So I feel like that is that connection point that is so powerful that you would have experienced in that. Like, it kind of lightens it so people, and when we lighten our energy, our spirit, we actually
Right.
open ourselves up to differing perspectives and different opinions and thoughts. And doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but it just means we get to see a different way.
Yes, and I think a lot of the shows that I watched when I was younger, they would deal with uncomfortable topics, but they would do it in a humorous way, so that you kind of put the cards on the table, you thought about it, you kind of maybe agreed or didn't agree, or but maybe made you see it differently. And it's funny, I'm a big fan of Joan Rivers, and I miss her so much because I think that she would be hysterical right now with the world that we're in this cancel culture. And I was watching her documentary the other night, and she did a joke that somebody didn't think was funny, and they're in the audience, and they got mad at her. And she goes, "Oh, shut up! This is humor, and this is what we're here for. We're here to deal with tough stuff and make people laugh." And I was like, "Yes, Joan, that is what we're here supposed to do." And it seems nobody gets that anymore. And and she was like, "How would we have dealt with 9/11 if we couldn't make people laugh?" And da 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 da. And I was like, that is so true. And I think that is something that we've really lost as a society. We've made it be like if something's oh, you can't joke about that, you can't joke about that, and then it's like, well, then how are we supposed to deal with it? It's uncomfortable. We need to put it out there, kind of joke about it a little bit, and then kind of handle it.
Yeah, exactly. As you were speaking, it reminded me of a quote. I don't know it verbatim, but it's by Plato about how like a moment of play allows you to connect and learn more about yourself than an hour of, not, it's just
Ooh, I love that.
so it goes back, like it goes way, way back to just beyond, this century or the last century
Mm-hmm.
into
Right.
how all of this is effective. So
Mm-hmm.
that's such a great perspective. And you're right, like the world is quite challenging right now.
Yes, it really is, and it's so funny because one of the things that I always thought was interesting about humor is a lot of times I've had my own hard times,
Mhm.
and when I've learned to process it, move on from it, and get over it, I can kind of learn to like laugh about something, or like that's why I think when Corona happened, I kind of felt the need to kind of like be there for people because I was like, okay, I know you feel like you just got punched in the face. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. Let's have some fun. I'll be here to lighten up your mood and take you on a journey. And I think it's because I had had a lot of losses or a lot of setbacks in my own life. And I've kind of learned how to deal with it. And I feel like, life's not fair. It's not easy. It's not perfect. It never is. But if we tell people it is, they can't deal with the hard times. So I really feel like we need to be able to like own the bad stuff, talk about it, learn from it, and process it. And I really feel like if we gave people techniques to deal, they would be able to handle a lot more things in life than we're allowing them to.
Yeah.
We're saying, you can't do this, or that's not right, or that's not fair. But I mean, that's not reality. I mean, reality is like, it's like a road. There's highs and lows and ups and downs. It's kind of like the ocean.
Mm.
You never know when a storm's going to come in, but then the storm will pass, but then there's sometimes a beautiful rainbow after it. So I really feel like if we prepared people more for all the different facets of life, we would be a lot better off and be able to handle the harder stuff a little bit better.
Yeah. And I like that perspective as well of like using it as a tool to handle things, not to avoid things either, because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes humor is used as like this is too much. I'm just going to step away from it instead and never look at it, rather than what you're doing and how you've shown up. Like you had different themes when you were doing it each night. You're now doing it once a week
Yep.
because you've gone back to work. But uh,
Right.
you had different themes each night. So it kind of gave people like the context of what they're tuning into and
Mm-hmm.
how they can show up when they just listen. Like understanding what the context was can help them to hear a bit better, rather than
Mm-hmm.
getting blasted with like a mess of all these different things. It was like, yeah, this, or um and that actually helps people to show up rather than avoid. And I think the way that you've delivered that has really made that difference as well.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So how have you heard much feedback from people, or like what's one of the greater connection moments you've had from this whole experience for you?
God, I've had so many. That's such a good question, Jess. God, I think what it is I've had a lot of people that have reached out and said to me that because of me, they tried, and that's fantastic because one of the biggest things I like to be is everybody's cheerleader. I never understand no. Like I really feel like I'm chemically imbalanced the opposite way of everybody else. A lot of people deal with anxiety or sadness or depression, and I'm kind of like an eternal optimist. Not because my life has been easy. I think it's more because I've had challenges and I've had to learn how to deal with it. So I think when people see me being positive or smiley, they think, oh, her life's so easy. Like Kristin's always happy. No, I'm not always happy. But I know if I allow myself to be mad or depressed, it just destroys me emotionally. So
Mm.
I try to push myself in the opposite direction because it's more conducive to my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to say. Okay, I'm waking up in a shitty mood today. What am I going to do to turn it around? You know what? I'm going to try to inspire somebody else because I'm going to get probably like 3 comments today, and that's going to lift my spirits, and it's just going to kind of put better energy out to everybody else and help them get through a bad day, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I've had some people that reached out to me in DMs that have said that they've tried things. I've had some people that have reached out and said that they really appreciate the fact of my authenticity and my honesty. And I think that's something that as a society, we say we're being honest, but we're not really being honest. And I'm trying to put more realness back into the world and bring it out of people. Because I really feel like that's where the real growth comes from. And I think that's where the real interesting stuff comes from, the real good conversations come from being like, ooh, I don't agree with you on that. Well, that's okay, but I can still like you. And then how can we deal with it, or what can we get out of it? I love actually meeting people from all walks of life with difference of opinions. And I like kind of going toe to toe with somebody once in a while and kind of, bantering back. Like at the bar, sometimes you'll meet somebody and you'll kind of get into a discussion. And that's what I was really trying to do with that show, is bring kind of authentic conversations the way it happens at the bar. I never know what someone's life story is. I never know what I'm going to get when a conversation goes in a certain direction. And it can get a little bit, a little bit tough sometimes, but you have to learn to say, okay, now we're kind of taking a right or a left. That's a little bit pushy. So you know what, I'm not going to agree to disagree, or that's in your opinion, or that's my opinion. We both have a different, you know what I mean? So I think that's what's been kind of interesting. And I'm trying to bring that back to the forefront a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really showing up with this practice of how to even be in disagreement, and knowing that disagreement doesn't equal disrespect either.
Right.
And because
Yes.
we all will have varying opinions, like even if we have similar in some ways, like there's so many varying opinions, and especially right now with everything so political and really important in some areas and really not conducive to anything useful in other areas.
Exactly.
There can be so many different opinions and different things going around. So I think even that practice of showing people, like leading by example and going, this is how you can communicate with someone. I don't know how it's going to show up, which is most of life, when you communicate with people. And then sometimes, we disagree, or sometimes it gets a little spiky, and this is how you might look at handling that.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was going live every night, and there were some really serious things happened in the meantime. So at first I was just coming on nightly trying to like make people lighten up and laugh during Corona, and be like, okay, 1 hour away from the news cycle, come here and hang out with me. And then like a lot of other serious things happen. I would kind of go on nightly, and I would have to kind of, navigate through that without a script, or without knowing how a conversation is going to go, or what a person's opinion is going to be in a certain thing. And you just have to kind of try to be as respectful as you can, try to have the open and honestness as well as you can. And I did have some times that people weren't happy with certain things that I was on at certain nights, or maybe would say things in the comments, and I would just write the person's name down. And then after the show, I would direct message the person and be like, oh, hey, I saw that you had some uncomfortable comments. I just want to know what you think or feel. I wanted to chat with you for a few minutes to see if we could kind of talk about some things. And it was amazing how many people that we really work things out just from having a dialogue. And I really feel like a lot of times people just want to be heard. And the thing is, if you just yell at somebody or say, you shouldn't be on tonight, and it's like, okay, but that's your opinion. I am me. I am not you. And so I really think that's what we've really lost. We think everybody is the same, and we're not. And just because one person deals with something one way doesn't mean it's the right or wrong way. We are all just doing the best we can with the situations that are put in front of us. And the average person just expects everybody to have the same thought, same feeling, same experience. And that's just not reality. We're all different people with all different makeups and all different experiences. And I think that's something that we have to kind of remember.
Yeah, holy hell, there's so much in that. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about that, all of the things. The biggest thing, like, well, I guess one of the first bigger things of that whole bit that you were just sharing then is how when we just approach and say, hey, like, okay, you disagreed with something, cool, like, can we actually talk human to human, not opinion to opinion? It's like this, can we actually connect? How can we connect? And it doesn't mean we have to agree, but it can mean that we can still like each other. If we like each other, it can mean that we can still respect each other as humans and hear each other. And oh my God, that's such a powerful thing. And I feel like we forget that, or we try for that, but a lot of people forget that, especially in the height of an emotional reaction as well.
Yes. We've dug in on everything that it has to be this or that. And it's just not going to help you get along with the big picture. Like what I said, as a bartender, I don't have the luxury of doing that in life. I don't have the luxury to say, I'm not waiting on you because you have blue hair. I have to wait on you. That's my job, is to wait on the public. I can't care what you think or what you feel about every topic, because my job is to give you an experience when you come in, to treat you and make you have a good time, enjoy your drink, make some food suggestions, lighten your mood a little bit, have a little conversation with you, and send you on your way. That has been my job for over 20 years, and I love doing it. But people have made it a lot more difficult than it has to be lately. And I'm just like, damn, man, like, I just want to try to have a good time. Like, when you're coming with all this energy, man, you're just ruining you're cutting so much opportunity out of your own life. And I saw this really funny comedy video today, and this comedian does a lot of like funny videos about like how everyone's like on sides.
Yeah.
And he was doing this video of playing basketball and like picking a team. And he was going, no, dude, you can't be on my team because of this. And like, he just kept alienating himself from having a teammate. And I think that's what we're kind of doing. Like, there's that old saying of don't cut your nose off to spite your face, right? But I kind of think we have, like, we're trying to say, be nice or be this, but then we're not doing in the same. So where are we really, what are we accomplishing on a day-to-day basis? So it just seems like we're really just chasing our tails lately. And I'm like, everybody just needs to simplify, cut it out, focus on you and what matters in your life, and put that energy out and build from there. You can't worry about all the other stuff. And I think that's what people just need to do. And I think that's what I loved about Corona at first. I felt like people were really kind of re-evaluating their lives. Like, people were getting back to simplicity. They were home with their family. They were cooking. They were saying, do I really need this extra shirt? Or do you know what I mean? Do I really need these things? And I really feel like, what was the point of going through all this if we forgot all of those great lessons we got the first month? If we've totally forgot about it. Like, I made a video a couple of days ago because when I got back to work and got back into reality again after being home for 3 months, it was like people cutting you off, people being so difficult at the restaurant, and you're just like, oh my God, hi, you're a human being. Say hello, say thank you. Let me remind you guys how to be a person, So I think that's what people have to be a little bit more remembering.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when things do feel hard, like, I feel like it can show up so differently when we do feel like we have that collective stress and anxiety and depression. And
Right.
like, people are like, you shouldn't be coming on now when shit's happening. But I also feel like there's a balance. There's like, the reality is there's always shit happening in the world. Like, and it's shit, and it's awful. And
Yep.
and we need to focus on those and things sometimes where we need to actually rally and everything like that. But at the same time, it doesn't serve anyone to hold back from our gifts, or like to hold back from what we want to share, or to bring lightness to the world, especially when the world really needs it. It helps us handle the shit a lot better, because we remember
totally
what
agree.
we're fighting for. We remember what we're living for. We remember those things in that, rather than just remembering all of the heavy shit.
Right. I think, and it's that, and I know, and it doesn't mean that you're not respectful to the heavy shit. It just means that not everybody is capable of handling things.
Yes.
And a lot of people are struggling day by day. And I just feel like there's so many people that are already hanging by a thread before all that other stuff is starting. So some people just need people that are there to kind of be there for them. And so that's kind of what I try to do. Like, some nights when I go to we have a saying at the bar, check your feelings at the door. Like, when you close that door and you walk on, you're on a stage, and nobody gives a shit how bad your day was. You're there to give an experience. So, that's one of the things I've always had to do. Okay, yeah, I might have had a bad day, but I got to shake it off. When I come on, I'm there to be something for somebody else. And I think that's why when shit is hard, I have really thick skin from a lot of my own life experience. So that's why I think I can handle the tough things. I've been at work when somebody sits in front of you and says, oh, it's a tough day, I just buried my brother. Now here you are. Now the next person you're going to meet, they just got engaged. So like, you literally have to have that capability to be able to jump from conversation to conversation, highs, lows, somebody who's being aggressive. So I think because of the world that I've lived in over 20 years, being a bartender, has really prepared me for kind of talking to people and dealing with the good days and the bad days, because I've done it for so long, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense, because it is a practice as well. And it's not to say that everyone needs to be able to handle that. It's the self-care aspect of, oh, okay, don't demonize someone for bringing that light into the world when we need it, but also if
Right.
you need to take a break and maybe go have a drink at a bar or, you know, like whatever, because
Right.
you had a really tough day, allow yourself that space as well and allow someone
Right.
else to hold that space for you. So it's this balance, it's this togetherness of how we get through it, rather than
Right.
like you said, alienating ourselves in our attempt to control things so much.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
It makes sense. Yeah.
I love this so much. It's so many good points. I'm really curious because it's been months now. I don't know
Right.
exactly how many, maybe getting close to 5 or 6, right?
I think, yeah, I started, my first show was April 9th.
Okay, so
So I just had four, I think this, like the week and a half ago was like 4 months.
okay, cool, gotcha. Yeah, so like that 2020, the oddest, longest year in the world ever in existence. Where do you feel
Right.
like where you started at the beginning with how you show up and how you communicate? Because I know that you had a
Hmm.
few like little challenges of whether you could show up like what you knew you could, but whether
Right.
like there was just, you know, this, can I allow myself to do that over that time
Hmm.
and all of that experience to now? What do you feel like is your biggest learning around communication or even leadership and how you lead your own life?
I think what I've realized is at first, I've always been an open book, and I'm just I am who I am. And then I think one of the things I've realized from this process is you have to really stick to who you are and be okay with that. And you have to, after doing the show for 3 months, I was home. So it was a very like lighthearted, and we were kind of having fun. I was just having lighthearted conversations, but there are some topics that are deep or things that I really am passionate about. And I am very strong willed on certain topics. And so I think after I went back to work, I was like, okay, if I'm going to continue on this journey, what am I trying to accomplish with this journey going forward? So I went on one night and I just kind of said, hey, everybody, I appreciate everything you've been following me for, but I just want to let you know I'm back in the real world. Sometimes I have good days, sometimes I have bad days now that I'm out of my little bubble of Corona. And I just want to let you know, like, if you're on the journey, you're on the journey, and you're not always going to like what I have to say, and you're not always going to agree with every topic I have, and that's going to be okay. And when you're making content or you're picking guests, there's going to be days that someone's going to be like, Kristin, I don't agree with that. And that's fine. You know what I mean? And I think I've learned to just say, that's going to be okay. I'm going to have to be okay. If I really want to speak my truth and remain who I am, I really got to be okay with the fact that some days people are not going to dig what I say.
Mm.
And that was the big decision I had to make, because to me, I was like, I don't want to get stuck in like this mold of like happy, yay. I mean, that is a lot of who I am. But then there's a day that sometimes I'm like, oh, shut up. Like, go fuck yourself about that. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I don't want to have to like be like, just because I'm positive doesn't mean that I can't be strong, and it doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion on something. And it's funny because sometimes people in my family will be like, Kristin, I don't really know if you should touch that topic. I'm like, well, I don't know. They're just going to have to deal. It's something I feel about, and I just go with it. And I just go with it. So I've really learned to just I've always listened to my gut. And I've really decided that I'm going to have to follow my gut on this journey, because the people that like me are going to like me, and the people that won't. And that's okay. And you've got to be all right with that.
Yeah. I think also within that, teaching yourself, and again, by teaching yourself and showing up in the way that you do, so publicly as
Mm-hmm.
well, teaching others that it's okay to get curious about things, even if you don't agree with them, like, or even if you're unsure of what it is or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
like, you can still be curious. So if someone
Mm-hmm.
generally likes your things, but they didn't agree with one guest or one topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can still be curious, and maybe if they're in the space to, and again, it's that if they're in the space to, if they're dealing with their own stuff, definitely, you know, like, allow yourself to step back for a moment. But if you're in the space to, sit and actually listen to the conversation, because you can be curious and
Mm-hmm.
still learn something, even if
Right.
you don't, you know, get on the bandwagon or whatever it is about, you don't
Exactly.
agree, you can still learn something about the world or learn something about other human beings and how they perceive.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. I think that I've learned that there's just a lot of interesting people out there. And I do believe that a lot of people do want to be, um, I think a lot of people want to be more honest. And I think it's just a hard thing for people to do.
Mm.
And I think it's just because of the way we raise people in society, is that there's lines that you're supposed to follow, and there's rules, and there's approvals, and I think that's one of the things that I really want to spend the next couple of months on this journey, is really helping people find their own voice and be good with it. And because I just think that that's when life gets easier, in my opinion. I mean, honest, they always say like the truth will set you free,
Yeah.
but the truth is the hardest thing to do. So it's kind of like, it's really hard to do it, because it just, sometimes you feel like you're hurting someone's feelings by being honest about something, or it's just not an easy thing to do. You
Mm.
know what I mean? So I think that's something I'm really hoping to kind of get a little bit deeper into, because I feel like it's been the greatest reason I'm happy, is because I am a brutally honest person. You know what I mean? And um, I just know, like, I don't know, I just have like that gut about me, and I just wish more people could trust it. Like, a lot of times I'll do tests. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And I just want to kind of see how quickly people can kind of feel their decision on something. And a lot of people like, I don't know. And I'm like, really? Like, you don't know what you think about that? Because to me, like, it's so instant for me sometimes, because I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And I
Yeah.
think I find that very fascinating, that I really want to help people kind of turn that on for themselves, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense, because it's about, I think there's a lot of fear in sharing your truth. Some people feel like sharing your truth means having to be aggressive in it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not the truth. You don't have to be aggressive to share your truth or to share what
Right.
matters to you, right? But also, sometimes sharing your truth is like, if you would ask me, and like, what do I think about something, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and I don't have enough information, sometimes my truth will be, oh, I actually haven't looked into that enough to really form an opinion.
Right.
That's the truth in itself, because then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes like, oh, am I interested in enough to investigate, or am I not? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's my truth. If I could just be like, actually, I don't really give a shit about that. So,
Yeah.
or it could be,
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Or it could be, oh, actually, I really wanted to, so it doesn't have to always be like an agreement or a disagreement.
Right.
It can be
Right.
oh, I'm curious. Again, I'm curious and intrigued, or my
Mm-hmm.
truth is that I don't care, or whatever, like there's so many different like little facets of truth that can
Right.
exist. It doesn't have to be the binary of like one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that when it comes to kind of tapping into that a little bit, kind of become a little bit of a superpower, because then like you kind of know who you are, what you like, what you don't like, and where your boundaries are. So I think I'm just trying to help people kind of tap into that just a little bit more, because I think it's a big piece to happiness. And I think a lot of people aren't familiar with it, because they're not allowed to trust their gut or speak their truth, or, you know, take the road the way you want to take the road, because everyone's like, what about this? What about that? And that's one of the things I try to say. I had a quote that I put out, and it said something like, why does everybody always want to tell people what they can't do instead of telling them what they can do?
Mm.
There's so many people, when you say like, oh, hey, I'm thinking of starting a podcast, they'll be like, oh, everybody has a podcast. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, why did you feel the need to say that so easily, instead of saying, no, really, like, what were you thinking of talking about? You know what I'm saying? So I just wish that people could stop for a second before they just shoot something down on somebody, because that's your own fear and your own self. So why do you push it on somebody else so easily?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And no wonder people close off as a result of that conditioning as well. It's so,
Right.
yeah. Um, where do you feel like you've had any particular challenges in your own truth, or in how you, like, maybe fears that have shown up for you as a part of this process, or
Yeah. I just feel like it, it's hard at first, because you're getting to know people, so sometimes you get nervous when you, like, there was a difficult time that we were going through during Corona, and there was a lot of pressure. Social media, I feel it can be a pressure sometimes. I
mm,
feel like people expect you to respond to certain things a certain way. And for me, I don't really like to do things the way that everybody else does things. And I hate the fact when you feel like you have to do this challenge, or post a certain thing a certain day. You know what I mean? I don't ever like um, request other people to do things. It feels almost like a pressure. And there's been a couple of times that those things have come up over the past couple of months. And you have to really kind of try to sit with it with yourself and say, okay, is it okay? And how are people going to respond if I do it this way?
Mm.
And that's one thing that was really challenging for me, because sometimes you'll just press send and you're just like, ooh, I don't know how everyone's going to respond to this. But then you have to say it doesn't matter how people respond to it. It was my truth at that point.
Yeah.
And if I'm speaking from my truth, then that's all I can give.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to kind of, so I think that's the little tricky thing about building something or putting yourself out there. You're really putting yourself out there. And that's the same thing with comedy. Comedy is basically they're standing on stage like, this is what I think.
Yeah.
And so, so it's nerve wracking, but then at the same time, oh my God, my backdrop.
You're right.
And that's what's kind of interesting about the process. So that's one of the things I am learning during all of this.
Yeah, that's a really good way to learn as well. We might finish it off with 1 or 2 part questions.
Sure, that's fine.
Where do you feel like, oh, it's really one. Where do you feel like there's room for improvement? And I feel like we've probably addressed this, but if you could summarize where there's room for improvement in how people communicate or connect, whether it's using humor or not,
Mm-hmm.
where do you feel like generally there's room for improvement for the world in that way?
I'm a big fan of this concept that I have called the shoe on the other foot.
Mm,
And so I've always kind of said, I don't know that person well enough to know what their journey was. And I think, especially with social media, we're so used to just pressing a button and sending it without even thinking. Like, we're not face to face doing it. You're just pressing a button. And I think that, you know, would you really say that, if you were in a different situation?
mm,
Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. And so I've always tried to say, what is that person? I haven't been in that person's shoes. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit more understanding of that person right off the bat. Like when someone's being difficult at the bar, I try to say, okay, what's the shoe on the other foot? Is this person having a bad day? So I think if a people could try the shoe on the other foot concept in life, I think maybe we'd be a little bit more um, caring
mm.
towards each other and communicate a little bit more efficiently, because we wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm just going to say whatever the hell I want to that person because I just felt like saying it. You know what I mean? Because you don't really know where they came from all day. They could have had a horrific day, sat in traffic, had a car accident, just, lost somebody, got bad news. So you know what I mean? So we just say, oh, I'm just going to, say whatever I want to this person. So I think that could be something that people could do a little bit more, is try to think before they speak, if that makes any sense. Pause.
Oh yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. It's practicing empathy, and it's pausing and creating space between whatever's been triggered in you
Right.
and then
Right.
choosing your response rather than just reacting. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely makes sense. Thank you so much for joining me here for this conversation. I loved this so much. It was all about connection and how we can understand each other, and it just makes me so happy to dive into this topic to start with, but also just to hear that it's being done so powerfully, literally around the world. So thank you so much for joining me, for your time, for your energy, and for all of those morsels of wisdom that have been sprinkled throughout this whole conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope people got something out of it. And yeah, I appreciate anytime you can have a conversation about interesting topics like this. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.